Dr. Louis Teichholz is a leading cardiologist. In 1977, he was a head of cardiology at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York.
I got a call from Dr. Ira Weiss, who had been one of my students at Harvard, who said that the Rebbe had a heart attack. So I was taken to the bedside of the Rebbe down Flatbush Avenue, 60 miles an hour, the wrong way with a police escort. When we got to 770 on the street was full of Hasidic men in their black coats and black hats, and literally, as the police came, it parted like Moses parted the Dead Sea. It parted, and I was rushed in. Someone took off their hat and gave me a yarmulke, and I was rushed in to see the Rebbe. Interestingly enough, despite the heart attack, he was alert and full mental capacity. I reviewed all the medical data, examined him. I told him, as a physician, that he needed to go to a hospital. He asked me, why go to the hospital? And I said, you need to be in a coronary care unit. And I explained all the monitoring equipment, the equipment to treat problems if they occurred. And 2 hours later, they built a coronary care unit at 770. And we took care of him at 770. Dr. Weiss flew in. Dr. Resnick was flown in from Hawaii. And we formed a group of physicians. And for 5 weeks, he was in 770. That was his hospital. That was his coronary care unit. And he did extremely well. And at that point, I started to have a lot of discussions with him. The Rebbe was very knowledgeable about many things, including medicine. And I learned a lot from him. And a lot of our views were the same, that you have to heal the mind as well as the body, and that the role of the physician was to heal. God gave us the right and authority to heal, but that the patient had to also participate. Perhaps the most interesting thing was our early discussions on preventive medicine. I think he was ahead of his time in terms of understanding the real role of preventive medicine. He wrote me a letter, which we discussed, when doctors cure all the disease, then they'll have time to prevent disease. And I think that made a very important role on me, and I've always been a big believer in preventive medicine and the mind-body relationship, that you have to have the right spirit, you have to have the right attitude in order to heal. One of the most interesting discussions we had, and we had it multiple times actually, was a discussion of the difference between biological age and chronological age. Chronological age being the number of years that someone's been on the earth from the day they were born to the current. Biological age was something a little more difficult. Biological age was really how the body responded in terms of the age of the cells, and also the mind, of how the mind responded. So biological age was more of how well the person was, what they thought, etc. And he made a very important point, that it's not the number of years that one lives on the earth, the sort of chronological age, but it's the biological age that's important. I think the Rebbe was a good example. I remember one Farbringen, I don't know if it was his 80th birthday, where I was a little, not concerned, but it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So we did initially try to restrict the time, but the Rebbe told us that he wanted to do it, and he would have these Farbringen. I went to Farbringens, and one of the most interesting things is he would see me in the audience there, and he would hold up his hand and hold his pulse and nod his head that things were fine. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, we finished the Farbringen, and he stood there handing Tanyas out to everybody, including myself.